Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Just before I start, and I haven't asked this before, please share this video about. These changes are coming very soon and we won't have time to stop them, but I want to raise awareness in advance of what will happen. Share it on Reddit, get it in front of streamers, tell your mum, whatever it may be. Not for my personal gain, but for the health of the game that we all love. Well, here we are. Some changes is in full effect and we're getting some pretty massive ones at that to the way Alterac Valley works for each faction. So today I'm going to cover the changes and tell you what exactly this means for you, as there are many things in this update that may not all be quite apparent at first glance. Here's the announcement. We're just going to run through it really quick and then we can cover it off and talk about it, okay? First of all, people with under 15 honourable kills are no longer given a standing. This functionally changes nothing. You essentially didn't have a standing anyway if you were below 15, as that is the minimum amount required to actually be part of your ranking bracket, so that's that. Alterac Valley will now allow parties of up to 5 players to queue together, and when they do, they will all be in the same battleground. That's fairly self-explanatory. There will no longer be a join battle number on the pop-up on screen. This is essentially Blizzard making it so pre-mades cannot confirm which battleground they are in when queuing with a number of people. We'll talk about this more in a moment. Not allowing Alterac Valley to start with as few as 20 players. This is a side effect of pre-made, and if you can't pre-made, this will no longer be an issue, so I don't really think this will change anything. And finally, the diminishing returns on honourable kills has been changed from 25% per kill to 10% per kill. So when I initially did my PvP announcement video a while ago, I said that it was 10%, and in patch 1.12 it was changed to 10%. Blizzard made it 25% since the only PvP back then was World PvP, to try and stem the gank fiesta a little bit. So just to be clear, one honourable kill at the moment is 296 honour against someone that is rank 1, the second's 222, and 0 on the 5th. After the change it will be 266 on the second kill, down to 0 after 10 kills. Well, there is a massive amount to unpack here. Let's try and do this in an order that makes sense, okay? Oh, and just to mention, of course, this is coming from a point of view of somebody that plays on European servers. I'm guessing things aren't going to be really different in North America from what I see, especially on streams. Also, keep in mind there isn't really buffing or nerfing honor gains. It's all relative to your server's bracket. It's just the way of gaining it being more or less tedious and harmful to the game. The battleground number on the join button going is Blizzard's attempt to stop Alliance from pre-mading in Alterac Valley. The whole setup is actually pretty impressive, to be honest. Now, in case you didn't know, there are several discords for Alliance pre-mades where you get an invite or a vouch from someone for being an active ranking person. So then you join up, you confirm your class, you have an epic mount, riding gear, various other things. Then you can join into a lobby where a countdown is done to join AV. So you press join and then you type the number of the battleground that you get into Discord. After a few seconds, a bot determines how many people are queued and for which role. If it's looking good, you join up as a pre-made and play the battleground out. If you didn't get enough people or a really bad setup, you leave and re-queue until you get a good match. That is the pre-made system in a nutshell. So you can see how removing the number on the battleground really affects this in a big way. This has allowed players at the top ranks to essentially decide what the honour cap for the top 3 brackets will be, since it's all percentage based. Meaning Alliance can play hard Wednesday to Sunday, hit their cap and have a few days off, compared to Horde needing to live and breathe the game. And if you mess up the top brackets on purpose or even via mistake, you could be out of the Discord and your ranking is over. Unless you sneak back in, of course, but you'll just get mass reported in game for sniping games. Because solo queuing, you have absolutely no chance of reaching the amount of honours that pre-mades do. You could run a bot 24/7 and I don't think you would have any impact at the top level of ranking on Alliance. And if Horde could do this, you can bet they would do it too. The reason they can't is because they have queue times. When I press Q on Alterac Valley, literally a few seconds later, any time of the day or week, the queue pops up straight away. On Horde it's 20 to 40 minutes depending when. Now, I can only imagine how frustrating it is to wait 20, 30 or even 40 minutes for a battleground only to be queued up against a pre-made and steamrolled in under 10 minutes. But you know what? Those same pre-mades have actually been reducing queues substantially for Horde. You see, when these Alliance pre-mades are queuing, there can be over 100 people all joining at once. This is opening up battleground slots that the game is then accommodating. At the same time, random people are queuing for Alliance, stepping into these battlegrounds which are now active and counting down to start, whilst the pre-mades are waiting for a call on the join screen. And if that game is dropped, suddenly a potential 20 to 30 people who were going to join that battleground aren't joining anymore. Uh-oh. This means those randoms who have joined are suddenly in a game that started 5 versus 40. Yes, I was actually in a game that started 5 versus 40 after 2 minutes. With pre-mades gone, this type of game would be impossibly rare to get. This is the kind of scenario which Blizzard is aiming to change, with not allowing games to start with as few as 20 players, which will not exist if pre-mades aren't a thing anymore. And for rep or honor games on Horde, actually having the alliance about is kind of just a bonus. Alterac Valley gives so much for not having to PvP at all, which honestly is a design flaw about the PvE-PvP nature of the battleground, but I digress. And whether you queue on the alliance or on the Horde side solo at the moment, you must have noticed how easy a win is for the Horde. And Alliance don't even seem to try, but why though? Remember the first few days when Alliance would steamroll every game no problem? I got nearly exalted on day one because I thought to myself, there is no way it's ever gonna stay like this. And surely enough, Horde changed up tactics to delay the game more and more, which with longer queues makes sense, as the extra honour from the PvP going on is now worth it. If both sides had instant queues, prolonging the game from an honour game perspective makes no sense since the baseline objectives are so easy and fast. Now, you see it every game as an Alliance player that people say, you know, the Alliance doesn't learn, Alliance can't adapt, we always get stuck here and so on. But the thing is, as more people have dropped out on ranks and those competitively driven went to pre-mades, the hardcore players from Alliance have disappeared from pickup groups, whereas the Horde teams will always have high rank players because they cannot pre-made. There is simply on average a massive gear and frankly skill discrepancy between your average Alliance and Horde pug AV player. And AV pugging on Alliance at the moment is awful. If you don't get lucky and land a pre-made, it is a slow loss nearly every time. Equally, on the Horde side, rolling the dice for whether or not you get match versus pre-made sounds pretty tedious too, especially when your queue times have to be taken into account. Anyway, speaking of queuing, you can now do so as a group of 5 for Alterac Valley and all be matched in the same battleground. This is another big change. A good one for the more casual player or guildies who want to put together small events, have some fun, have a few drinks, have a game of AV. It should be fantastic for them. Now for the not so good side. Remember Phase 2 World PvP? Bet you missed it, right? Well, you're in luck because every single Horde player that is aiming for high ranks will be part of a 5-man squad from now on. There is literally no downside from doing so, and you're guaranteed to have at least 4 other competent people in the battleground with you. I suppose you have to share honour in the open world, but guess what? Blizzard is reducing the diminishing returns from honourable kills from 25% to 10%. Remember how we just talked about Horde queue times going to be longer, and that Horde can now queue as 5? And that in those queue times they need to farm honour in the open world, and that every late game zone is going to have 5-man gank squads patrolling about. I must say Horde players, at least on Gehenna, are already ganking again in Ironforge and camping flight points, but it's usually about one guy there sometimes. It's not all that bad. Tolerable, you could say. And since it's only one person, you can actually win a fair amount of the time if you prepare for a fight upon landing. After this change, it's going to be 5, and Horde groups will have access to mage portals so they can vary where they camp much more efficiently. People bring up that the diminishing returns on honourable kills will make this exponentially worse, but dying 5 or dying 10 times is kind of neither here nor there for me, to be honest. There are add-ons of course saying how much honour you're worth to an opponent. Maybe I'm wrong on this because I don't really put myself in these situations, but I think a group is going to kill a red bar, not stand there and evaluate their honour gains, be it a 25% reduction per honourable kill or 10%. Who says at least I only died 5 times to this group instead of 10, until the next group shows up of course. The issue is being able to queue as 5. People would camp and gank if it were a 50% reduction per kill. The number is absolutely irrelevant. The encouragement to move as a 5-man squad is not. I've seen people say that 25% should remain for the open world, whilst having 10% for battlegrounds. I don't think this would change anything for those reasons just mentioned. Blizzard's reasoning behind the honourable kill diminishing return change is that PvP has moved to battlegrounds now, which is true, and it will improve honour gains there. It's also a buff to Warsong Gulch honour gains, since now each person is worth 10 kills instead of 5 for a pre-made, and doing pre-mades for Warsong Gulch is still very much going to be a thing of course, as well camping pugs in their graveyard for 10 kills whilst capping 3 times, and Warsong Gulch has no time limit, so if a team with way better geared players on Discord wants to camp you, your only counterplay is to not resurrect at the graveyard and hope they move on, which by the way they should if they want to get decent honour gains. That doesn't sound too great for the average player. Overall for me these changes bring out some big negatives. Anything that even remotely could bring back half as bad as Phase 2 was for World PvP will be severely detrimental to the future player base of the game. If anything from reading these, I would say that since honour gains are relative, changing the honourable kill diminishing returns from 25 to 10% only makes Warsong Gulch graveyard camping a really attractive option, since pre-mading AV will be gone and will do next to nothing for the person who is getting ganked in the open world, so I'm against that change for this reason. Secondly, without a doubt the worst change from this will be the 5-man queuing is possible. This will cause massive issues and will be nearly instantly apparent why it shouldn't be in the game. This is at the cost of casual players being able to group up in AV, which I agree is a shame, but with this, Phase 2 World PvP will return, especially with longer queues and each group having access to portals for travel. Honestly, pre-made biting the dust kind of needed to happen. AV for a pug is in such a bad place on Alliance, and sometimes an 8-min loss for a Horde. I mean, who's winning here really? The only issue here is what is the next best thing for the top end Alliance players. With 10% diminishing returns on honourable kills, it'll be Warsong Gulch, which is also instant queues by the way. It may be that nothing changes in Alterac Valley, with Alliance only being able to queue as 5, since tactics and frankly effort put in by each side now has become so ingrained. Alterac Valley could just be RIP at this point. The other things mentioned in the announcement don't really make any significant changes. And as for people asking for Arathi Basin to vary up battlegrounds, sure, it has its positives in that it's a larger size so it's harder to pre-made, and it has a determined endpoint via the resource system, but it doesn't solve the new issues these changes are bringing in. We need to solve one thing at a time. That is my take. If you made it this far, I want to know yours. And as mentioned at the start of the video, I would appreciate this being shared about to raise awareness and see if we can change the change. As always, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care. Bye.